Welcome to Module 3. Propose a solution as a solution architect for Microsoft Power Platform and Dynamics 365. This module is part of the Architect Solutions for Dynamics 365 and Microsoft Power Platform learning path. This learning path can be used as part of your preparation for the PL600 exam, Power Platform Solution Architect. Let's get started. Propose a solution as a solution architect for Microsoft Power Platform and Dynamics 365. Introduction and overview to proposing a solution. Proposing a solution is a logical next phase in a project. At this stage, you likely don't have enough detail to plan long-term requirements. However, you can consider building a proof of concept or a few proofs of concept apps. As you consider solutions, keep in mind the systems and apps that are already in place and will not be changing. Additionally, you should determine whether constraints exist that you must work around, a legacy system that you cannot avoid, or regulations that you must comply with. Customize versus extend. During the pre-sale stage, you can create a solution that requires several customizations and/or extensions that fit the customer's requirements. However, the numerous customizations and/or extensions could become a technical debt that you will have to pay later on, and can often lead to unhappy customers. Customizations increase the total cost of ownership, TCO, so it's important to set a precedent at this stage clarifying that given the real cost, you will assist the customer in making choices about how to proceed with a particular requirement. Typically, when you explain a much simpler and cheaper approach that is out of the box, customers will appreciate your honesty. You can even create some rules around the decision process for making customizations. For example, if a feature will take more than 2 days to configure, or if it requires code to be written, then it must be approved by the CTO. This kind of approach will lead to greater trust between you and the customer.
Welcome to the Business Application Solution Architect Proposing a Solution module. At this point in a project, you will be starting your solution envisioning after initial discovery. You're not quite prepared to start building a solution, but now we start envisioning what that solution might look like. We take the needs and information you've learned during discovery so far and map it towards some solution components. Your solution should start from Dynamics apps as appropriate and add on your customizations to fill the gaps that you discover. Dynamics 365 apps offer you out-of-the-box and ready-to-use solutions that you can then customize to meet specific needs for a customer. A custom Power App can directly address the needs with a robust and responsive solution. And third-party offerings from AppSource have been vetted by Microsoft as an option for you to use as part of your total solution and often take care of very specific sets of requirements. Additional third-party integration can happen using a custom connector or an API when connector is not available, allowing your Dynamics data to communicate directly with an external source as needed. Industry accelerators have been built and are available as a production-ready starter data definition that reduces your time needed for an industry-specific solution. Accelerators are available for financial, medical, nonprofit or charities, and more. Here we talk about diving into that and how you can plan for a successful solution. As your proposed solution takes shape, demonstrations of parts of it to the customer can help them understand the vision and offers a chance to showcase the platform and build confidence. The solution architect should be involved in identification of what parts of the proposed solution to demo. Demos can include out-of-the-box functionality, can use pre-built solutions, or can be prototypes and even proof of concept for trying out the unknowns. In this module, we will look at how to decide the best type of demo to use to reduce risk and get the customer on board with your proposed solution.
A solution architect might take the lead or, at minimum, participate in documenting customer requirements. The documentation should start early in the process. One of the documents is a solution blueprint. Depending on the specifics of the solution, the blueprint will address many aspects of the solution. For example, a typical construction project will have a blueprint that addresses its electrical, plumbing, loads, and many other aspects of construction. Dynamics 365 Solution Architecture also has a set of important blueprints that is essential to the success of offering the optimum solution to your customer. The solution architect will spend a good amount of time developing the solution blueprint by processing the information that is received during the discovery phase to producing a set of charts and architectural assertion. Together, the charts and assertions form the blueprint of the solution that is yet to be delivered. As the following image shows, the blueprint document should include architectures that are relevant to customers' needs. These include process architecture, application architecture, data architecture, integration architecture, intelligence architecture, security architecture, continuous update architecture, and platform architecture. The rest of this module discusses the following topics: identify solution components, develop and validate a proof of concept, identify potential third-party components, recognize strengths and weaknesses in a solution. Introducing your customer. This module refers to the customer Woodgrove Bank, and the exercises and discussions throughout the lesson relate to this customer and how you can help them. Woodgrove Bank has offices in 14 US states, in addition to an office in the UK and another in Germany. Woodgrove Bank is a leading global financial services provider with an emphasis on commercial lending and investments. Administrative users work in the office and are never mobile. However, all mid-level managers need to be able to work from their home offices or while on site with a client. The team at Woodgrove feels overwhelmed with their disparate systems, therefore they are looking for a solution that connects their data in a way that boosts financial success and customer satisfaction. With an internal-facing only deployment, Woodgrove Bank would have fewer regulatory concerns. However, each team within the bank would have their own responsibilities. The following table describes Woodgrove Bank's customer-facing teams. Business growth and asset management. Commercial accounts with less than $1 billion in annual transactions. Growth in this sense refers to the loans used to reinvest in the corporation. These customers share a group of account managers. They are not specifically assigned to an individual. Fortune 500. Each customer in this division is assigned a senior account manager as their primary contact for all banking matters. Once a company is managed in this division, they remain here, even if they roll off the Fortune 500. Group portfolio management. This team manages parent-child accounts for firms with multiple organizations under a common umbrella. New business development. This division is primarily marketing for new business. Once an account is qualified and active, it moves on to the appropriate management team. Public sector, government, and higher education. Woodgrove is a preferred lender to many sovereign governments around the globe as well as private universities. This team also tends to a handful of high-volume non-profits serviced by the bank. Consumer lending. This team is the smallest as Woodgrove focuses on commercial products. However, high-volume consumer lending is available on a case-by-case basis. This team is not advertised to external prospects, but mostly utilized by the executions of corporate clients. Relationship managers. This team consists of members of each of the other teams. This ensures a consistent experience as accounts may move between teams and interact in other ways. This team also establishes best practices for users. Escalation call center. The bank runs a 24/7 365 call center. They have a 5-person team, 1 manager and 4 CSRs in each of the Chicago, Frankfurt, and 2 teams in an outsourced center in Manila, the Philippines, doing an early and late shift to cover the APAC region. In addition to these teams, Woodgrove Bank has the standard set of C-suite executives who are involved with overall bank operations and supporting the team as needed. Woodgrove Bank is hoping to have the new system in a pilot phase so that the CEO can present initial results to the annual general meeting, AGM, in 4 months' time. Let's look at the next module. Identify solution components. During the discovery process, some solution ideas should start to become clear. This unit discusses how to identify solution components that might make up the proposed solution for the customer. Because this is still the pre-sales phase of the project, Your goal is to illustrate for the customer what the proposed solution will look like after it has been built, and then explain how the solution will meet their objectives. It is also a good time to begin thinking about a product roadmap and about how the components will be implemented to show quick value over iterations. Map needs to functionality. From your meetings with the customer, you should have captured their key needs. To identify components, you should reflect on these needs at a high level and match them to either existing Dynamics 365 apps, to a custom Microsoft Power Platform app, or in some cases, to custom development. For larger projects, you might need to map to multiple apps or all three categories. Not all projects are starting from the beginning. Many have existing systems in place and are simply enhancing or integrating with what already exists. For example, a customer might have Dynamics 365 customer service and is adding on some omnichannel features to address a specific need. Some needs might map to more than one app. You might find that the sales aspect maps to Dynamics 365 Sales, with the commission tracking and payout being enhancements to their existing Dynamics 365 Finance app. Be careful about mapping or proposing that the customer replaces or adds another app that duplicates something they already have. You might be helping the customer for that reason, which is acceptable. However, if the customer already has a non-Microsoft ERP and you have proposed that they add Dynamics 365 Finance because it makes your solution deployment easier, your proposal will not be well received. For key solution components, we recommend that you highlight where out-of-the-box functionality will be used and where custom aspects are required. For example, you should highlight whether you are using standard sales features for everything except a product configurator. Then, for the product configurator, you would highlight the proposed solution, for instance, having a custom Power App embedded in the app or perhaps offering a third-party configurator solution. Use imagery to explain complex ideas. You can create a single-page diagram or picture that describes the solution in a way that's easier to understand. Include the different personas who interact with the system so it's clear how the solution will be used by different people. Avoid adding too much detail, which can make your diagram difficult to look at and could overcomplicate your ideas. If you keep your illustration concise and polished, it will become the reference point for future discussions and will set you apart from the competition. In places where more detail is necessary, you can create a related diagram that can focus on certain areas. Data modeling. Formal data modeling happens as part of the solution's design and usually after a contract is in place. However, during the pre-sales phase, high-level data modeling conceptualization is done constantly to identify the large pieces of data and where they might belong. If a proof of concept is done, this effort is often used to prototype what is demonstrated to the customer. These data model insights are also transferred into the design process to jumpstart the data modeling thought process. Consider having a summary and detailed data model to share. The detailed model will be used by those who design and build the system. The summary model will be shared with stakeholders that need an understanding of the solution but don't require specific detail. Process modeling. During discovery, you should have also learned about the customer's key processes. As you propose a solution, being able to tell the story of how your proposed solution accomplishes their key business processes is essential. In some cases, your proposed process might be similar to the customer's existing process. However, more often, it will differ. As you identify the solution components, highlighting key differences is important and should include how your proposed process changes will achieve the identified objectives, such as resolving cases 20% faster while keeping customers more informed. User experience. Customers will always focus on the user experience. During discovery, you should have captured details such as whether users are always mobile, sometimes mobile, never mobile, or other unique user experience needs. As you identify the proposed solution components, mapping these needs is important. As necessary, these components should be demonstrated with a proof of concept or wireframes that illustrate your proposed solution. Wireframes might include the following elements: main forms, dashboards, mobile experience, visualizations, for example, Power BI. The following image shows an example of a wireframe and the actual form that you would build from the wireframe. Integrations. Most solutions do not exist in isolation and rely on internal or external integrations. As part of identifying the solution components, you should be able to highlight how these integrations will be handled. This process might include defining what tools or services will be used to complete the integrations. In a multiple system solution, you need to define clear boundaries where one system ends and another begins. These boundaries become contracts between those responsible for their build and maintenance. Focus on what happens on these boundaries and try to clearly define whose responsibility it is to build interfaces and who will be consuming them. This clarification is especially important where third-party suppliers or internal development teams are involved. Deployment options. Microsoft provides a subscription-based model of Microsoft Dynamics 365. With this option, you are able to access Dynamics 365 from the cloud without having to further invest in your IT network hardware and software licensing. No local deployment of the application is required, and your users will be able to access Dynamics 365 from multiple browsers. This access can be critical for remote or off-site staff who need easy access. However, Dynamics 365 Finance and Dynamics 365 Supply Chain Management, previously known as Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations, can be deployed on-premise, which means an organization can deploy the applications locally. For the following Dynamics 365 applications, you should use Lifecycle Services for deployment: Dynamics 365 Finance, Dynamics 365 Supply Chain Management, Dynamics 365 Commerce. For other Dynamics 365 business applications, such as the following list, your primary deployments will be online by using a standard development test production set of environments. Dynamics 365 Sales, Dynamics 365 Customer Service, Dynamics 365 Customer Insights Journeys, Dynamics 365 Field Service. You are also able to create a trial environment and give it a practice run, which will allow you to get your system up and running in a matter of days rather than weeks or months. You no longer have to contend with ongoing server maintenance or license fees. Additionally, you can purchase your user licenses directly online without going through a vendor, and you can add more users online as you need them and as your business grows. Dynamics 365 business applications offer multiple types of environments. The type of environment indicates the purpose and determines the environment characteristics. Trial. Trial environments support short-term testing needs and are automatically cleaned up after a short period of time. Sandbox. Are non-production environments and, when associated with a Microsoft Dataverse database instance, offer features like reset. Production. Used for permanent work in an organization. It can be created and owned by an administrator or anyone who is licensed with a Power Apps license. Default. A non-custom production environment. Each tenant will have a default environment that is created automatically. Developer. Developer environments are created by users with the Community Plan license. They are only for use by the owner. Sharing with other users is not possible in these environments. Microsoft Dynamics Lifecycle Services. Microsoft Dynamics Lifecycle Services helps you manage the application lifecycle of your Microsoft Dynamics 365 Finance and Microsoft Dynamics 365 Supply Chain Management implementations. Lifecycle Services is a Microsoft Azure-based collaboration portal that provides an environment and a set of regularly updated services. This portal provides a collaborative workspace that customers and their partners can use to manage finance and supply chain management projects. Lifecycle Services support you from pre-sales to implementation phase and then to the production environment, either on the cloud or on-premise. With checklists and tools, Lifecycle Services helps you manage the project, including providing pre-built methodologies to help with the implementation. Lifecycle Services supports greater predictability, collaboration, and structural procedure for the administration of application management. The goal of Lifecycle Services is to move towards predictable, repeatable, and high-quality implementations by simplifying and standardizing the implementation process. Next steps. Identifying the key solution components will help you determine your next steps. For example, you can determine your next steps based on whether you have demo-ready solutions that you need to tailor to the customer, or if you are building a new proof of concept or prototype. The goal of this process is not to create a detailed design of the full solution. Remember, this is still pre-sales. You want to be able to tell the story of how your proposal will handle your customer's needs and have enough of the solution identified. Having this information in place will help you determine whatever pricing needs to be done so you can reach a signed contract and then proceed to build the solution. Exercise. Identify common uses among Woodgrove Bank's teams. Review the Woodgrove Bank's customer profile, specifically their customer-facing teams that were described. Identify common themes in the teams. Determine whether any teams overlap in needed functionality. Assess if any individual team is so different from the others that it warrants a separate solution. Next unit, develop and validate a demo. Develop and validate a demo. As you start to envision the solution that you will propose, you might consider sharing a demo to validate requirements with your stakeholders and to help build confidence in the platform. When a customer is confident in the platform, they are more willing to accept your proposed solutions with enthusiasm. Demos can take different shapes and forms, depending on the solution that is being proposed. The following approaches are some of the most common. Out of the box. This type of demonstration highlights one or more of the apps that don't have customizations. This demo is often performed by pre-sales resources and don't involve the solution architect. This method is an effective way to get customers up to date with the core product features. The negative aspect of this approach is that it doesn't help the customer envision their solution on the app. You can mitigate this issue by including relevant sample data to their business. Pre-built demo. Many partners specialize in particular verticals or solution areas and invest in developing pre-built demos that contain their own intellectual property that tailors the out-of-the-box base solution with their design value add. This approach helps the customer to see their particular problem area because it often uses the vertical language in the app. Additionally, this type of demo hides topics that aren't appropriate for the solution area that might distract the customer. While the solution architect isn't typically involved in demonstrating this pre-built solution, they were likely involved in helping compose it at some point. In fact, the solution architect should potentially consider demonstrating the pre-built solution when they find themselves building the same prototypes repeatedly. Prototype. This approach takes the out-of-the-box state and, with the customer's needs in mind, performs minimal tailoring of the app to reflect the customer's needs. The main benefit of this method is to help the solution architect tell a story during the demo that the customer can relate to when trying to solve their particular objectives. The solution architect is often involved in helping customers identify their objectives by using the envisioned solution to help either build or guide the team to produce the prototype. Proof of concept. Proof of concept should be built to prove that a concept works and typically involves a specific component or activity in the proposed solution. Frequently, this method is done during the design phase, but can also be used during pre-sales when the customer needs to see the concept work in the context of their proposed solution. The solution architect typically drives the need for this method and is involved in driving the effort. Unlike a prototype that usually has a straightforward path to completion, proofs of concept might try multiple approaches to reach the desired goal. It's common to interchangeably use the prototype and proof of concept approaches, and, from a customer perspective, the difference typically doesn't matter. Your goal should be focused on telling a story and bringing your proposed solution to life, which will help the customer see their problem solved by the proposed solution. You should also consider reducing risk by eliminating unknown issues that might contribute to the customer's current problem. Solution architect involvement. The solution architect, along with the sales team, should be involved in identifying what should be demoed and what approach to use. For example, out of the box versus prototype. How involved a solution architect should be in building a prototype or proof of concept varies greatly across projects. These efforts commonly involve multiple skill sets and a decision point of who should be involved in building. Often the solution architect will find that if they simply do all the work themselves, it might take a few hours, whereas coordinating across a team of diverse resources and having to explain the need might take a few weeks. Solution architects should make sure that they involve others in situations where it's not advantageous to complete the work by themselves. Keep or discard. When you build a prototype or proof of concept, you should realize that quick wins might not translate to a best practice for production-ready solutions. Best practices aren't difficult to follow. However, if you want to quickly showcase an idea, it's easier to develop an impromptu idea than use an established best practice to plan for a larger solution. You should decide on this approach in advance because, if you want to carry the assets forward, you will need to ensure that these assets meet your standards and aren't shortcuts that can't be remedied easily. Manage expectations. Creating a demo to showcase your proposed solution can be almost effortless. Therefore, it is important to manage your expectations. Commonly, after a demo has been given, a customer immediately accepts the proposal and asks when they can go live with the solution. The best way to manage this scenario is to be direct by saying that while what you are showing might look complete, it doesn't have all the security, automation, and other enhancements that are necessary for going live. It's important to have this discussion right away, rather than assuming that the customer understands that your demo is simply a demonstration and not the final solution. Exercise. Demos for Woodgrove Bank. Use the following questions to help you plan a potential demo for Woodgrove Bank. What type of demos would you create for Woodgrove Bank? Are you able to craft ideas for a good proof of concept that could showcase some extraordinary functionality? Next unit, identify potential third-party components. Identify potential third-party components. During a project, you might realize that the app you are working with isn't capable of meeting a requirement. At that point, you have three choices. Custom build a new app, look for a third-party solution, work with the customer to remove the need for the requirements. Whenever possible, it's always best to prioritize the out-of-the-box solution because it results in less complexity in the solution and licensing or maintenance costs throughout its lifetime. This unit discusses some of the considerations that you might make when considering third-party solutions. Where to find third-party solutions? The official Microsoft App Store for third-party solutions that work with Microsoft Power Platform and Dynamics 365 apps is AppSource. Independent software vendors, ISVs, can register their solution and go through the certification process to be listed. As you look at solutions, consider their level of integration with Microsoft Power Platform apps and the Dynamics 365 apps that you are using. The less integrated they are, the more likely you will have to perform custom integration to fully use the solution. Solution architects that work in the same solution area should be aware of the most popular ISVs that solve problems in that area. Often, partners will develop skills in a particular set of ISV extensions that they can reuse on future engagements. A solution architect is frequently involved in that internal evaluation and selection. Evaluate the ISV. As you contemplate including a third-party ISV component as part of your overall solution, know that you are taking a dependency on the long-term viability of that component and the vendor. The success of your implementation now depends on that component working as advertised and, if not, it being supported by that ISV. As part of evaluating an ISV, you should consider the following factors: how long the ISV has been in business, how large the ISV is, and whether they have the means to support an implementation of your size, how long they have been building for Microsoft Power Platform or Dynamics 365. Evaluate the ISV component. You should assess the ISV component to ensure that it is viable to solve the targeted problem. Often, it is not until you try the component in your proposed solution setting that you will discover its shortcomings. Often, it is not until you try the component in your proposed solution setting that you will discover its shortcomings. Often this scenario is when a proof of concept approach can help. As you evaluate the component, consider the following factors: Security integration. Determine if the component works with the Microsoft Power Platform and/or Dynamics 365 app security models. If the component has a different model, assess whether you can easily map a solution and still meet your requirements. Flexibility for customization. Microsoft Power Platform and Dynamics 365 offer several options for customization and extending. Review what is offered by the component and whether it will adequately fulfill your requirements. Stays current with Microsoft releases. Microsoft updates weekly, in some cases, and, at times, deprecates older approaches to keep the apps modern. Assess whether the ISV is keeping up with releases and is using supported techniques in their product to ensure that you won't have problems. ISV roadmap. Determine if the ISV has a roadmap of their planned enhancements. Make sure that you verify whether the ISV has plans for enhancements or not, and if the product is offered as is. Data location. Find out where the ISV component stores its data, if it integrates with your Microsoft Power Platform and/or Dynamics 365, or if they have their own cloud or other storage solution. Fitting the gap. If your team plans on further customizing a component, verify that the component's licensing allow for that and what technical debt you might be adding. Evaluate licensing. If you're bringing a third-party component into the solution, licensing must be considered. Ensure that licensing is not only in the project budget, but also is done in a way that is compatible with your use. For example, limits on the number of API calls or other ways that users interact might not work for your volume of use. The use of open source is also becoming more popular on business application solutions. Generally, the appeal is that they are free to use. However, solution architects should still be aware of the component's licensing model and any requirements to comply. Additionally, project contracts with customers often stipulate some level of approval when open source is included in the overall solution. Using third-party components is a great way to solve gaps in the out-of-the-box features for the apps. Often, by using a third-party component, you can save time and optimize ongoing maintenance when compared to custom building similar components. By spending initial time evaluating and selecting the component that you use, you can avoid unpleasant project issues that arise from selecting components that aren't a good fit. Exercise. Review AppSource for financial solutions. With Woodgrove Bank in the market for a large solution, you should be aware of what others have done and how it might fit into your proposed solution. Go to AppSource and look for package offerings that could help Woodgrove Bank quickly reach a viable solution. Next unit. Recognize strengths and weaknesses in a solution. Recognize strengths and weaknesses in a solution. One challenge that a solution architect faces is becoming so close to the solution that they proposed or designed that they don't reflect on its strengths and weaknesses. Therefore, at key points during the project, it's a good idea to pause and assess what you are designing. Optimally, you should ask another architect to help in this assessment. Likely, you might find that you are asked to do the same. Address organization objectives. A project's key objectives shouldn't be so extensive that you can't perform individual checks to ensure that you're addressing them. Additionally, you should reflect on how well you've addressed the objectives, making sure that more information couldn't be added to better highlight how your solution will meet the customer's needs. Occasionally, another architect might have a creative alternative that could be worth including, or they might be able to identify whether your included items that don't provide value towards your goals and are therefore non-essential. Oversolving a problem. Periodically, architects like to solve problems with solutions, apps, that they are comfortable with. Review your proposed solution components to make sure that you haven't proposed an app or pre-built solution that is disproportionate to the needs. Customize an app versus using a pre-built app. If you have larger parts of the solution that are specified as custom-built components, determine whether any parts might be better suited for an existing Dynamics 365 or AppSource app. Especially during the pre-sales timeframe, proposing a solution with a few options is an excellent way to talk through the positive and negative aspects of each approach with the customer. Compare your proposed solutions with the competition. While it might be optimal, Being the only partner who is asked to propose a solution, it is likely that multiple options are being evaluated simultaneously. During the pre-sales review of your proposed architecture, consider analysing how your solution compares with others. You will likely face competition from others who are proposing Microsoft solutions and from similar competitive vendors as well. Being prepared with questions about your competition and preparing your other sales team members for how to compare your solution with the competition can be helpful. Organisational opportunities. During the discovery phase, your customer likely shared some of their other organisational challenges. When your proposed solution is in place, review those challenges to determine whether any could be added to the scope of your proposal as easy wins. Irrelevant system rebuilds. Occasionally, organisations need to move from existing, antiquated systems toward more modern technology. With current changes in technology, rapid advances in artificial intelligence, higher speed, and increased capacity, advancing to a modern system is a significant change that can be reimagined. Assess your proposal to make sure that you have not unintentionally rebuilt the aging system that your customer is moving away from. SWOT analysis. Periodically during a project, you will likely participate in the creation of a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, or SWOT analysis. This analysis can be detailed or casual. After you've intentionally compared a few of these analyses, you might keep a mental list of each of these processes as the project progresses. A brief SWOT analysis of Woodgrove Bank might resemble the following example. Strengths: strong customer base. Weaknesses: disparate systems. Threats: CIO's golfing buddy. Opportunities: ready for improvement, recent acquisitions. You can use the knowledge you've gained from a SWOT analysis to help guide your project and decisions for a better outcome. Exercise: identify risks for Woodgrove Bank. As you've continued learning more about Woodgrove Bank, a few risks have presented themselves. Review all the risks that you've identified so far about Woodgrove Bank and determine the solution that they need. List at least 5 risks Woodgrove face with implementing a successful solution. Consider the following questions, which can help generate ideas for your list of 5 risks. Does the project have any non-tangible risks? What direct or indirect competition does Woodgrove Bank face? Does your firm possess the skills to complete the job for Woodgrove Bank? Is the timeline realistic? Is the budget realistic? That's the end of the module. Now you can check your knowledge. Okay, so answer the following questions, see what you've learned. Wireframes might be used to help demonstrate the proposed solution for which component, integrations, data model, security model, user experience. I've selected user experience. Business applications solution architect should consider which of the following options first to solve an organization's need. App source third-party apps, custom apps by using Xamarin, custom apps by using Power Apps, Dynamics 365 apps, or apps should not be considered during pre-sales. I'm going to go with Dynamics 365 apps. As part of the solution you have proposed, adding a component that you aren't confident will solve the customer's needs, what is the best way to reduce the risk for this specific component? Do nothing, resolve the risk after the project kicks off and the contract is signed. Only demonstrate the part that the out-of-the-box app can do. Reject the need. Prototype. Proof of concept. I'm going to say proof of concept for this one. When proposing a third-party solution as part of your proposed solution architecture, you should consider which of the following options: extensibility, ISV viability, licensing, data residency. I'm going to say all of the above. Let's review the answers. Let's have a look at the summary of this module. Summary. A key activity that the solution architect performs during the pre-sales phase is to help take the information that is gained during initial customer discovery and shape it into a proposed solution. The specific amount of involvement during pre-sales varies greatly from project to project. In some cases, the involvement of the solution architect will be to simply review what the sales team has already developed. The solution architect, while interested in seeing the sales happen, must also ensure that the proposed solution is feasible to implement. Key points from this module include: solution architects map the customer needs that are learned during discovery to a proposed solution. A proposed solution should first use pre-built apps and consider third-party solutions and custom development apps to handle gaps. Third-party solutions can be an effective way to address gaps, but the solution architect must be vigilant in selecting an ISV and their products. Solution architects should use demos to help communicate their proposed solution and to reduce risk of facing unknown issues. And that's the end of the Propose Solution module. I hope you found this Audio Learn series useful. If you did, give it a like and subscribe to the channel. If you want to hear more audio learning from Microsoft Learn's learning paths, leave a comment on what you'd like to hear next. Thanks for watching.